Hi, my name is Elizabeth Red, she, her. I often go by Liz, but I have a variety of nicknames and I love them all. So to begin, I'm going to talk about what I usually describe the kind of work that I do. I am primarily a glass and multimedia artist. Glass blowing is my main medium. I do love glass. It's something that just has captured my attention and it's something that I want to continue working with. However, I don't limit myself to glass. I like to work with other materials as well, such as wood, recycled materials, found objects, things that I find in nature particularly, and especially metal. So I will include metal in a lot of my work. What projects, ideas, or forms and creative work have been holding my attention lately? I actually don't currently have access to a hot shop, so I've not been blowing glass, but instead I have bought myself a glass lathe that was used. It was a really kismet opportunity, and it is something that I'm setting up right now and I should be running by next week. It is a glass lathe, is similar to a wood or metal lathe in if you're picturing it. So it's this big piece of equipment, and as it spins I can put rods of glass on it and use a torch to heat it up and manipulate that glass. I also am currently enrolled in a jewelry casting class, so I've been casting bronze and silver on small scales. How long have I been living and working in San Bernardino? I was actually born in Fontana, as many of us probably were. There is a big hospital out there, but I grew up on the border, so I'm technically grew up in LA County, but on the outskirts. So where I live is the border of San Bernardino and LA counties, and within the past 5 years I started coming to San Bernardino a lot. There seems to be a booming art community out there, and there's a lot of opportunities, including glass. And so I've been going out there on a regular basis, not only to blow glass, to meet up with people, but also to work. And so I have TA'd glass classes out there. I've worked alongside the tech, and I am also part-time at Arts Connection as a teaching sub. When you think about support for artists to thrive in your community, what comes to mind? The first thing I think of is other artists. I feel like I've really built a community in San Bernardino. I think there's a beautiful group of people doing social justice and artwork out there. And I think that this network has been the largest support system. So just knowing that there's other people creating is very motivating. Being able to create with other people is really motivating. I don't know if you've heard of body doubling, but it's kind of like that, being able to be in the studio with someone else. And apart from other artists, I think of spaces. And so the Garcia Center of the Arts has been a space for me to create in. Also thinking about spaces that are open to everyone and spaces that are accessible. Are there tools, spaces, or forms of support you often hear artists wishing for? Yes, absolutely. I think there is not enough access to 3D arts specifically. I think that there's places to draw everywhere, but it's really hard to find a place where you could create with real classic materials that are going to hold up to the test of time. So I'm talking about glass, I'm talking about metal, I'm talking about wood, about ceramics. Having a space to create in, having instruction, and having this access for free, because as artists it's really hard to pay to create when we're living in the kind of economy that we are. And so I think I talk about affordable access, but really what is affordable? Because the people who provide access and the people who need access have much different numbers in mind. And so I really think just having free access would be ideal. That feels extremely relevant for glass, because in glass blowing we do not have easy access. It is a medium that requires a lot of materials, it requires a lot of equipment, and it requires a lot of fuel and energy constantly. So finding access to glass is extremely hard, and even places that are more affordable are expensive. And unless I have a a job that has already been contracted and paid for, I can't afford to rent spaces out. If access to these resources were easier, what might shift for me, if anything, I would be glassblowing daily. Even when I was out at Valley College and Cal State, I got the opportunity to glassblow 1 to 2 times a week max, and only for a few hours, if that. So it's really hard to get access, and that means when I'm making, I feel like I can't just do whatever I want. I feel that I either need to be making things that are gonna make me money back, or I need to be working towards a specific idea, and it's hard to get time to experiment and to play with the material when you don't have access. When you hear the word advocacy for artists, what does that mean to you? I think that supporting our local artists is really important. There's a lot of big names that get opportunities over and over again, which is great. I mean, they're usually amazing artists and they usually have a great portfolio to show, but it's hard for a lot of artists to sort of break that barrier. And so I think just making the whole art world a little bit more equitable and accessible is really important to advocate for artists. I think that everybody needs access. I think that we need paid opportunities, and I think that we need to focus on the people who are around us, because I see a lot of amazing local talent. What kinds of support would feel useful or appropriate right now? The economy is hurting, and as someone who does a lot of markets, I am feeling it 100%. What I really would love right now is more opportunities as an artist that are paid. I would love, I don't think a lot of us are afraid to work. I think that there's not a lot of work that's offered. And so it would be really great to get more paid opportunities that are consistent, that have a considerable number of hours. I think getting more grants like this one and free access to facilities. What values do you hope are centered when support for artists is being discussed or designed? I think that there needs to be more access to the public. I think people who pursue the arts find a way to make art. I think that people who don't think art is important will never think art is important, because if they don't want to go to a museum, where else is that art to impress them? And so I really would love to see more public art. That's something I would also love to create more of. And I think exposing the average person to art and just sort of creating appreciation for art throughout our population would be important. I think education for art and spaces to create, again, are very important. What feels important for others to understand about artists in this community? I think it's really important to understand how much work artists do. We not only come up with these ideas, but we execute them, we fabricate them, we find a way to get these materials, we find a way to put them together. And then on top of that, we're expected to be our own advertisers. And so I think artists are doing a lot behind each piece, and it's something that most of us have a hard time to even quantify. What, if anything, helps you stay connected to your creative practice over time? I think that is just my own personal drive. I can't not create. I need to always be making. And when I'm not, I go a little bit crazy. And so I do love glass. Glass, like I said, is my main medium, but I also have mentioned that getting access to glass is really difficult. So finding other ways to create is something that I will always do, and I will use recycled materials. I will find new ways of working different mediums. I'll look for different community classes, and I will always be making. So there's no way that I can't make. It doesn't ever last for very long periods of not making. And is there anything coming up in my creative work that I'd like to share or invite the community to? I have one of my favorite pieces, and the largest piece I've ever created is going to be on display at the LA County Fair this year. It will be up for the duration of the fair. You'll be able to find it in Millard Sheets Hall, where they're going to have a whole exhibit on art and play. So I hope you all come and check it out. Thank you.